Hello, everybody. Welcome back to track two. I hope you all had a nice lunch break. I don't know about how the weather is where all of you are, but in Hampshire, in the south of England, it is beautiful. So I took the opportunity to take a quick screen break and take my beautiful puppy out for a walk. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's probably her being a bit over energetic now because she's just been out for a walk. Anywho, back to the agenda. We have got our first and only double act for this conference this afternoon. So we have got Prithvi Raj and Saranya Jaina presenting. They are talking about the evolution of Kubernetes native chaos engineering with Litmus Chaos 2.0. So I'm very excited to hear this talk, and I will hand over to you both. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Paula, and thanks a lot, everyone, all the organizers of KCD UK. It's a pleasure to be here, and I mean, I could take a lot of time to talk about it, but without any further ado, I'll be sharing my screen, and we'll be talking about chaos engineering right now. I hope my screen is visible.
Yep, looks good to me.
Yeah, so as the title suggests, we'll be talking about the evolution of Kubernetes native chaos engineering with Litmus Chaos 2.0. I mean, Litmus Chaos, I'm not sure how many folks are aware of it. Chaos engineering, again, I'm not sure how many folks are aware of it, but we'll talk about everything and then move on to 2.0, which actually helps users have a better chaos engineering experience than now. So a little bit about me and Saranya. I mean, Saranya will introduce herself, but my name is Prithvi Raj. I work as a community manager for the Litmus Chaos project at Chaos Native. I started at MyData, which was the original sponsor of Litmus Chaos, and then Chaos Native spun off, and we've been working there building Chaos. And obviously, I'm working also as a co-organizer at Chaos Carnival and was part of the KCD Bangalore team and organize chaos engineering meetups in the CNCF space every last Saturday of the month. And you can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn here. Saranya, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is Sarna, and I work as a software engineer at Chaos Native, and it's over a year since I've been contributing to Litmus, and yeah, I have learned a lot along while, and it has been an amazing journey so far. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Saranya. So moving on to the agenda, obviously we'll be introducing chaos, what exactly chaos is. We'll be talking about Litmus Chaos, the journey of the project and what exactly 2.0 brings in. And then perhaps Saranya will take it forward, talking about the architecture and show you a small demo if time helps or time persists. And then we talk about the roadmap and how you can contribute. Obviously, Litmus is a CNCF sandbox project. So let's get started with chaos engineering first, but we'll be talking about resilience, what exactly resilience is. I mean, resilience is nothing but the ability of your system to withstand any outage or any possible downtime that happens, or basically it's the ability of the system to stay afloat when a fault is induced or a fault happens in a system. But if we talk about Kubernetes, what are the possible faults that can happen? What are the possible faults that can come up? Let's take some examples of resilience and weaknesses that can possibly happen in a system. Let's say a pod is evicted from a node. So if the pod is rescheduled and the dependent service is healthy, of course, your system is resilient. But let's say your dependent service slows down or turns out to be unhealthy, then obviously your system goes down and it's an example of a weakness. Now, let's say a node goes to a not ready state. The pod is rescheduled and the different dependent service is healthy. But again, if it slows down and turns out to be unhealthy, so these are the examples of weaknesses or the faults that can happen in a system. And similarly, memory leak in a container, there are so many examples of weaknesses that can possibly come out in your system when a fault happens. So moving on, let's take examples of downtimes. I mean, downtimes are expensive. Apple, Facebook, every company has had a loss of billions and millions of dollars due to such outages or possible downtimes that have happened in your system. And that is where chaos engineering, or the term chaos engineering, was coined by Netflix back in 2012, 2013, where they needed their systems to scale. They needed their systems to avoid downtimes or possible outages. I mean, moving on, I mean, when your systems move into production, that is where there's a possibility of an outage or a downtime happening. So that is where chaos engineering, the term chaos engineering, was coined. And it is nothing but testing your systems, or deliberately inducing a fault in your such system, or a chaotic condition in your system to cause unexpected disruptions which can happen in real life scenarios, disruptions which can actually disrupt your system when something happens in the real world. I mean, the goal of chaos engineering is basically to break systems on purpose. I mean, that is what usually people call it, but we believe it's more like breaking things on purpose to finding the faults or making the system resilient, identify the weaknesses that can happen in your such systems, and keep on testing in a controlled way so that you can introduce random faults on unpredictable behavior, but eventually make your systems resilient. So why exactly chaos engineering is required? We have taken a pyramid here, which is in form of an application or an infrastructure that you are running. So there's your application, obviously, which is the topmost layer, but there are other layers as well alongside your application. So there's the MongoDB, Kafka, there are cloud native services, there are Kubernetes services, and there are platform services alongside that. So obviously your application is there, but each and every layer is responsible for your application to be resilient. So your the resiliency dependency increases as we go down, as we move to the infrastructure layer. Each and every layer needs to be tested, and chaos testing helps test each and every layer individually, and that is where it is able to find the possible outages that can happen, because obviously too many applications are there, and that can affect the resiliency of your system. These can affect how resilient your applications are. And then this is a dynamic world, it's changing every day. You need to constantly validate the resiliency of your system, because you're constantly putting in enhancements and features in your system. So validating it is necessary. And specifically for the Kubernetes paradigm, I mean, Kubernetes adoption is increasing day by day, and it has already crossed the mainstream chasm, or it has already crossed the major adoption segment, where every other company or enterprise is focusing on Kubernetes adoption. And that is why chaos engineering is a must, or that is why chaos engineering is necessary. So in the DevOps loop, where does chaos engineering come into place? Obviously, on the dev side, we have got integration testing, performance testing, unit testing. But chaos engineering is more on the ops side, where you deploy, operate, and monitor what exactly is happening. You monitor what exactly is going down with chaos and being induced in your system, and then you observe. And we believe in the principle of testing and not waiting, the chaos first principle, obviously famously also quoted by Adrian Cockcroft from the AWS team, where why wait for your systems to go down? Why not induce chaos initially in your system and make it stronger and with free of vulnerabilities? So what are the 4 simple steps of inducing chaos? Obviously, the first and foremost step, this is part of the principles of chaos, by the way. If you go check the principlesofchaos.org, you'll find these principles being explained in a very definitive way. So first things first, you understand the steady state of the system. How does your system behave when it's in the steady form or without any fault or outage happening? And then you hypothesize around it. You understand what are the real world events or the real world scenarios that can possibly happen, and you build a hypothesis around it. So then you test. I mean, before experimenting, this hypothesis helps you understand your system properly. What is the throughput of the system, how the system behaves when it's fault free, and how the system behaves when any sort of fault is induced. What are the possible outages that can happen? When can the system go down? And then you experiment. Then you induce a chaos experiment. It can be a pod delete, a pod CPU hog. It can be a node level experiment. It can be a container level experiment, and you run them in production. Basically, that is the eventual goal. But with chaos engineering shifting, or the idea of chaos engineering shifting, the idea is to test even before production, in your pre-staging, in your pre-prod environment, even in your CI pipelines. So that is what the idea is. We'll move to that. And once you experiment, your system needs to adapt. So how does your system adapt? Obviously, you need to automate these tests. I mean, the manual way of doing it is obviously there, but the world is moving towards automation. So you automate your chaos tests. so that they can run by themselves, and you create a chaos experiment suite with the experiments that are specific to your application. And then you minimize the blast radius. Obviously, I mean, for the short-term negative impact, in inducing chaos is good with a particular blast radius, but so that it doesn't hold a long-term negative impact and you are able to get something positive out of your test initial idea, you obviously minimize your blast radius so that your systems can adapt according to the chaos experiments that you're running. So that is what helps you build a resiliency or make your systems resilient. You identify your steady state conditions, you introduce a fault, as I said, a pod delete. That's the basic Kubernetes experiment that happens. And if the steady state conditions are regained, of course, your system is resilient for that particular fault. But then you need to keep injecting a new fault. You need to identify various faults that can possibly happen. And that is how you keep on testing your system repeatedly. But if a weakness is found, you fix it, and then you introduce a fault. That is how, this is the basic workflow or the flow chart of how chaos engineering is run in your infrastructure. So how is it typically done? I mean, obviously there are game days which are happening where enterprises or particular people are inducing chaos specific to their application, having a chaos suite, and then formulating a working paper or a white paper. And then, you know, they are moving ahead, but it's rarely integrated into your CI/CD. As I mentioned, CI/CD is also something important which needs chaos testing repeatedly. SREs, the SRE persona started it off, or it was just specific to the SRE persona as of now to induce chaos. But being part of the community since the last 1.5 years, the developer persona is also moving on to chaos. While developing, chaos testing is helping developers to basically identify the resilient points, or basically identify what are the possible outages that can happen and make their systems resilient. Manual planning and execution has been there, and I mean, as I said, the need of the hour is to automate your experiments. I mean, bring into automation. And obviously, I mean, the eventual goal is to adopt chaos. The current scenario, as you know, or you might know, many people are not aware of what chaos engineering is. People are reluctant, enterprises are reluctant to induce chaos or adopt chaos or bring it to their roadmap. And that is why we have formulated these points on how is it typically done. I mean, observability is not a commodity. You need to observe where your systems are going down. Chaos observability helps you identify the possible outages, monitor them, and create logs. I mean, identification is what is helping people induce chaos in the current world scenario. And then obviously a custom measurement process needs to be in place. It's already there, but the results have been not typically going in favor. But I mean, the increase in reliability is obviously needs some sort of testing or some sort of ideology, right? And that is what chaos engineering is. It's not just a technology, but an ideology where, you know, you comprehensively focus on results which help you increase your reliability or resiliency goals. So what exactly Litmus is, and we are talking about chaos engineering here, but Litmus is nothing but a framework or a tool set. It's part of the CNCF sandbox pool, hopefully moves into incubation soon. But it's an open source cloud native framework which helps, not just Kubernetes SREs and developers. Its initial mission was that it started off as a project to test OpenEBS, which is another CNCF sandbox project based on databases, to test it, and then, you know, eventually became a project itself and is meant for running Kubernetes as well as non-Kubernetes native chaos engineering tests to help you make a system resilient and basically bring in, you know, resiliency in your system. So as of now, I mean, the project has been lucky to have 50 plus experiments, and I mean, these stats are somewhere around August, but as far as I know, it has somewhere around, you know, more than 500 and more than 470,000 plus experiment runs and around 200,000 plus installations. So there's a vast community. I think I'll be sharing some links if Paula or someone from the community can share that with us. But I mean, Litmus, the project is growing, and is the exponential growth is something that I am proud to share with you. So where in DevOps you can use Litmus, as I mentioned, you can use them in your dev CI pipelines, you can long run your tests, you can use them in your pre-staging or staging environment, you can use them in your production environment as well as production, because the eventual goal is running chaos in a controlled way in your production systems. So what has the journey of Litmus been? I mean, there was a chaos hub which was created. So let's talk about what exactly the chaos hub is. It's a marketplace which helps you check out all the experiments that are available or that have already been written. These are the stats, as you can see. And there are generic experiments. There are Cassandra based, Kafka based, OpenEBS based. The generic experiments are obviously Kubernetes based. So there's a pool of experiments. And from here, you can pull your experiment and obviously you can run them. So it's a one of a kind. No other project provides you with that. So it actually helps you develop more. Obviously, it's an open source project, and then the custom resources were created. Operators, schedulers help you schedule your chaos, and then operators help you run your chaos experiments. And initially, only individuals were able to, I mean, run their chaos tests. But slowly, I mean, with 2.0 coming up, there were new features which were added, new workflows, you were able to create new workflows as a chaos test suite. A chaos center or a UI was introduced, which Saranya will cover, and then eventually monitoring and observability was also given focus to, where you can observe your experiments, you can calculate your resiliency score, not just individuals, but users, I mean, teams can manage them together. And then obviously GitOps, I think GitOps is the future, is the present. Scalability is very important. So you were also able to manage your chaos engineering workflows using GitOps and a custom images registry. So with this, I mean, the advantages are out there. There's a UI for you. There are chaos workflows which help you run your specific scenarios. There's a Litmus SDK, which helps you bring your own chaos experiments, so you can bring your own chaos with Litmus. You can write your own chaos experiments. You just don't have to be dependent on the chaos hub. And obviously observability, multi-tenancy, and workflow management makes Litmus 2.0 an advantageous tool set. And over time, with the community inputs, with community calls every third Wednesday of the month, 2.0 came up to evolve the Kubernetes native resiliency space. So with this, I would like to hand over this to Saranya. Perhaps she can cover the features and take us through a short demo if we have time. And I'll be answering questions once this talk finishes. So I think Saranya, you can take it forward.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and share my screen. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Saranya.
So hey everybody, I'll be taking you through the architectural overview of Litmus. So starting off from the left hand side, we have the persona, whoever wants to practice chaos engineering. Then the first step is the chaos workflow creation. So there's the target application, which is the it's where the chaos injection takes place. Against what application? So in this case, there's a WordPress application which is trying to do a transaction from the MySQL. And in this case, there's a pod network latency chaos experiment, which is going to be injected against this application, this WordPress application. Then next, coming to the chaos control plane. So here the Litmus Center, which is now called as the Chaos Center, sits, and it is basically the main, the single source of truth, where you can manage and control all the chaos activities like workflow creation, multi-tenancy, observability. Everything can be managed through this single platform. And it has three major components. The first one is the auth server, which enables the authentication and onboarding of users. Then there's the GraphQL server, which manages all the chaos related things, the multi-tenancy, workflow creation. All these events are handled by the GraphQL server. And then Mongo is used to store all the data related to the users or the chaos injection. Then coming to the chaos execution plane, so it is where the chaos injection takes place. So there's the concept of target agent, which you can it's basically a target cluster where you can inject chaos. So let's say you can actually install this agent in either a namespace scope or cluster scope according to your own requirements. So like if you want to target all the namespaces, you can install it in the cluster-wide scope, or if you want to target a particular namespace, you can install it in the namespace scope. Then there's the Litmus also provides the workflow controller and the event tracker for GitOps and chaos monitoring for using Prometheus. There are two different CRs that I would like to talk about. The first one is the chaos experiment CR, which basically contains all the metadata, all the tunables of the entire experiment. So in this case, when the pod network latency, that chaos experiment is going to be installed, so it basically pulls this boilerplate template from the chaos hub that Prithvi just talked about. And then there's the chaos engine CR. So in this, you can edit those tunables as per your requirements. And then there's the chaos operator, which keeps a watch and does certain number of kinds of validations, such as the target agent is present or not, or the tunables that you provided are valid or not. So all these validations are done by the chaos operator. And with Litmus, you can also inject chaos in both Kubernetes and non-Kubernetes environments, such as bare metals, infra resources, etc. Then coming to the core components of Litmus, as I've already talked about, it has the chaos center, which is the chaos, which sits on the chaos control plane, the single source of truth, which through which you can manage all the chaos activities, and the chaos agent, which sits on the chaos execution plane, which is nothing but a target cluster where the chaos is being injected. Then I'll be talking about the features that Chaos Center provides. So starting off with the Chaos workflow creation. So Chaos workflow basically consists of several number of Chaos experiments, which can be clubbed in any fashion as per your requirements. And it can be created using like via various ways, such as you can upload your own workflow template, or you can create some custom workflows by choosing experiments from the Chaos hubs, or Litmus also provides some pre-created YAMLs. So these are the predefined workflows where the target application also gets installed along with the Chaos experiments. And obviously you can schedule all these workflows as a singular run, or you can have a recurring schedule as well. And you do have a control over the experiment priority. So which what I mean is you can basically add weights to each of the experiments of a particular workflow. So higher is the value of the weight, higher is the priority of that experiment in that workflow. So an experiment having a lesser weight will not affect much during the resilience score calculation post chaos injection. Then workflow management can be done by using GitOps. I will be talking about GitOps a little later. Then you can also add your own custom image from your own image server, which can be either private or public. And you can just measure and analyze the resilience for post-chaos injection. So Litmus also comes up with a concept of probes, which are basically pluggable checks, which can be added as a steady state hypothesis validation. And yeah, you can the application can be validated post chaos injection. So currently there are 4 kinds of probes: the HTTP probe, CMD probe, KTS probe, and the PromQL probe. Then with the latest release, Litmus Chaos provides supports multi-tenancy, which means that you can be a part of several projects and you can create your own team and invite other users as a viewer or editor. And yeah, so authentication is also there, which ensures security of a particular user and the smoother onboarding process as well. And Litmus can also be installed in both namespace and cluster scope modes as well. Then yeah, monitoring and observability. So you can actually connect any data source and monitor the workflows. And you can also visualize each of the workflow runs of a particular workflow, be it like singular or singular or a recurring workflow. And you can compare 2 or more workflows, and can then post comparison a PDF can be downloaded. And then in case you do not like the interleaved dashboard, you can upload your own dashboard, and these dashboards are obviously tunable. So like the queries can be edited, the endpoints of the Prometheus can be changed, and Litmus also provides a ways to monitor chaos in real time with the interleaved events and monitoring with Prometheus data source. Then coming to GitOps, so it basically integrates it can integrate any Git-based SCM, that is the source control manager. So provided that you have enabled GitOps. So once the GitOps is enabled, it kind of switches off the Mongo as a DB, and all the workflow management activities can be done via Git as a single source of truth. And this means like it is also bidirectional in nature. So which means if any changes happen to either Git or the Chaos Center, both of them will be synced. And there's also concept called the event triggered chaos injection, which enables you to what happens is when the target application undergoes any change, it will basically cause a trigger, and that will launch the subscribed workflows automatically against that application. Then last but not the least, with the latest release, you can inject chaos with on the against the non-Kubernetes environment also, such as bare metals or infra resources as well. As a summary, earlier Litmus used to have just the experiments. Now it supports chaos workflows, which consists of several experiments. In the previous versions, it was just per user, per cluster. Now with the support of teaming and agents, you can you can work in teams and in an organizational level as well. So yeah, it was like earlier Litmus used to have just the public chaos hub, but with gradually the community with the community we have developed, so that now you can have both public and private chaos hub. You can connect external your own hubs and get started with the workflow creation. Earlier it was CLI only. Now you can have you can use both CLI and GUI along with other features such as GitOps, scalability, integrated intelligent monitoring, etc. Then jumping on to the demo. So I have installed Litmus via Minikube. So this is the chaos center that I was talking about here. All the workflow, all the chaos activities can be managed, and I have logged in as admin. And by default, project will be created for me, and under which I can inject chaos workflows. And we have here you'll get the chaos agent. So upon installing Litmus, a self agent gets created in the same cluster where Litmus is installed, and you can basically inject chaos in that same cluster. And you can also connect n number of external agents by following the steps. Yeah, so this is the workflow section where you can get all the details of related to workflow runs, the schedules that you have created. Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and schedule a workflow. So the first step would be to select the agent, the target agent. So currently I just have the self agent, so I will choose that one. And then you will be getting the options, different options to create your workflow. First one is the predefined workflow. And then you can also clone any existing workflow, or you can create your own workflow, custom workflow by choosing experiments from the Chaos Hub. Or if you have any YAML, you can just use that only. So I'll just select the first option, the second option, that is the Potato Head. So it is basically a CNCF based, so it contains a Potato Head application, which is the CNCF based microservices demo application. And the chaos that will be injected here is the pod delete experiment. So this here you can see the complete visualization of the workflow. So first of all, the experiment that is the Potato Head the application that is the Potato Head application will be installed. Then the chaos experiment. In this case, the pod delete experiment will be installed, and after that, the chaos injection will take place. So post completion of the injection, these two steps will run in parallel. The first one is the revert chaos, which will clean up all the resources that got created, and delete application will basically delete the complete application that got installed. So I'll just go ahead and yeah. So this is the YAML of the complete definition file of the workflow. Here you can see the steps of each of the that I just mentioned, and I just go ahead and change the type of the application from resilient to weak so that it can complete sooner. Just yeah. So here you can add the weights of the particular experiments. I'll just keep it 10, and I'll be getting two options. The first one is I can schedule it right now, or I can have a recurring schedule as well. So I'll just go ahead with the first option and schedule it right now. So this is the summary page, the summary of the entire workflow. I'll just hit finish. So once the application, the workflow is now in running state. So if I click on it, as you can see, this is the complete visualization of the ongoing workflow. So currently some checks are going on, and post the value, like the completion of the checks, the application will get installed. And if I click on any of the nodes, I'll get all the details related to that particular step. So here I can it is in pending state right now, but I can get all the logs related to it. So you can also view the logs via in our tabular view as well. Yeah, so meanwhile, I'll just go ahead and describe other features as well. So here, as you can see, by default, the Litmus Kiosk Hub stays connected, and you can take a look at the experiments from there. And you can also connect your own Kiosk Hub, which can be either private or public. You just need to provide the the required details. Then from the observability section, you can manage, you can run and manage the analyze the workflow that have run previously. And as I have logged in as admin, I can create new users and manage them. And this is the teaming section where I'll be getting all the details related to the team. I can invite new members, then I can view the details of the invitations or active projects if I'm a part of, and the pending invitations. All these details are available here. And there's this GitOps and image registry section as well. So yeah, that was a very brief demo of all the features. Let's check up on the, yeah. So installation application is getting installed. And as you can see, the application got installed. Now the kiosk experiments are getting installed. So meanwhile, I just go ahead with the slide. Next, we have the future roadmap. So as a community, we want to increase support for kiosk, like non-Kubernetes kiosk experiments. And we want to have more and more, increase the number of application-specific experiments, and to smoothen the experience of creation of user-defined experiments. We want to, it is one of the goals to improve the kiosk SDK as well. So since Litmus currently provides 4 types of probes, we want to diversify the steady state hypothesis validation, and we want to other goals are improving the observability and bringing more and more chaos types. So contributing guidelines. So as a beginner, you can get started with by taking a look at the good first issues. We actually welcome contribution to all kinds of things like the feature additions or the bug fixes, and you can also take a look at the documentation as well and suggest improvements there. These are some of the important links that will be sharing, and you can get connected with us via Slack and post your queries there also. So yeah. Okay, so the kiosk injection is going on. As you can see, these are the logs, and kiosk results will only be available post the completion of kiosk injection. So yeah, that here you can get the verdict of the experiment, of the complete workflow, all the details related to the workflow that has gone. So yeah. So that was a very brief demo of how we can get started with Litmus. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you. Just go ahead and stop sharing.
Thanks, everyone. I'll just share some links and then we can wrap up perhaps. There's the GitHub, if that helps. And you can join us in the Kubernetes Slack itself. We are in the Litmus channel, so.
That's awesome. Thank you. We'll certainly share the links when we put the video out on YouTube as well. And thank you, Saranya, for being so brave and doing a demo. I always get so nervous when people live demo, and you did it so beautifully. So that was fantastic. I only had one question. You talked about the evolution from Litmus 1 to 2. Are there more features in the pipeline? Do you have a view what 3 might look like? What's the roadmap right now?
Yes, Paul. I mean, for Litmus 3.0, we are looking forward to more kiosk types. As you mentioned, I mean, there are so many kiosk experiments. I mean, JVM kiosk, IO kiosk, and there are so many more kiosk experiments that need to come into place. That is one thing. And obviously, project improvements are also there. I mean, there are so many enhancements that need to be done. The community is giving inputs day in and day out. So the focus as of now for 3.0 is increasing the kiosk hub, the kiosk pool, and also it's making it ready for both enterprises as well as individual users. I mean, the SRE persona as of now loves Litmus, but we also need to focus on the developer persona, as we mentioned. So yeah, taking inputs from the developer persona, that's the current idea to develop Litmus as of now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much. I appreciate it's probably kind of a different time for you than it is for us right now. So thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions for Prithvi or Saranya, please put them into the Slack channel. They'll be there hanging out if you want to ask any questions. And thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Paula. Thanks a lot, Matt, and everyone, the organizing team. Bye.
So we are nearly there. We have one more speaker for track 2,